Well, let's start this out with my welder. I've done a few videos on this welder quite a bit, so I won't get into it on this video. If you guys do want to watch what I've done to my welder and some of the modifications that I've done to it, you can click on this video right here, or maybe it's over there somewhere. I'll post a link, or no, better yet, forget the annotation stuff. Just look down in the description, and I'll leave a link down there to the video. That gives you more information on what I've done with my welder here. It's a Harbor Freight, 90 amp flux core. Works pretty good. Kind of, but I'm getting a little sick of always having to clean up my slag now. Now we're going to look at my rack right here. Yeah, look at that rack. Gotta love a good rack, right? Okay. Just got some meandering stuff up here. Stuff that we use around the house, that sort of thing. I've got an old engine right there. Might get that thing up to par. I got a few other stuff sitting around. A bunch of speakers that I pulled out of dumpsters and of home stereo systems that I've had and that sort of thing. And, you know, the stereos have busted, so I just hang on to the speakers. Up here I've got the lights that I've been working on. Some of you guys have seen the videos for those, and if not, I'll leave a link down in the description so you guys can see those things. They're pretty cool. This rack that I have the steel on, I have my 1x1 inch square tubing on top, but I've only got 6 of those, and I need to get more for my other builds and stuff like that. So the top portion I use is the steel that I use most of the time, so that way I can just pull it off and put it right up onto the chop saw. And the stuff that I don't use too often goes on the second step here, and the stuff that I hardly ever rarely use goes down on the floor. Over here we have my 14-inch chop saw that I got from Harbor Freight. Works pretty good. The chop saw I used to have before this was a Ryobi wood chop saw that I just replaced the blade, and it was kind of nice because I could make compound cuts with it, but this does not have that kind of feature to it, so it makes cutting steel a little bit more difficult. I've got all my little stuff over here, like DOM tubing and just pieces that don't really fit anywhere else in the shop. Then I've got my medium stuff right here. That's more like stuff that's too small to fit on the rack, but too big to fit right here. That's kind of like where that goes. And that's also specialty stuff, like tubing that I use for my tie rods. You know, a few other things too. Oddball stuff like 1x2 square, you know. Yeah. This 14-inch, now this 14-inch chop saw is kind of nice to have because since the blade is 14 inches across, I like that because the blade actually lasts a really long time, especially as much as I use it. Now I don't have any bolts bolting this thing down. I just have this one big C-clamp that holds it into place. Most of the time if I have to cut long pieces, you know, I'll mark it with a Sharpie and then eyeball it with the chop saw, and then I'll put, you know, cut it on the line, or cut it where I need to cut it. But let's say if I was going to be cutting, let's say some DOM tubing, and it's going to be 4 inches long, and I need to say cut 15 of them. Well, I have this jig set up right here on the side of the table that I can loosen it down there, and I can measure it, measure 4 inches from the blade, so I can just put the steel in there, butt it up against here, tighten it right there, measure it, and then I can just bring it down, cut it, throw it over, bring it down, cut it, you know, that kind of thing. So I can do repetitious cuts if I'm going to be cutting a lot of the same thing. And all this is just some little half inch by half inch square. See how that is. Got this C-clamp holding on this piece of flat stock because the steel this used to work perfect with the Ryobi chop saw, but because the cutting area is too far behind this part here, I had to extend this back. So one of these days I'll tack these areas right here so I can take the clamp off. So, because if I put a piece of steel in there now, this thing won't even line up. It won't even touch it. See that? So I had to put an extension piece on there. And all it really is just a piece of steel overlapping another steel, and it slides across there. I have to put oil on this every once in a while, so that's how I have that set up. And the primary bar here is just bolted down in here. I can loosen this up and grab this bar and slide it out. And then there's my welding table. I've explained to people a lot about that. 4x4 on top. It's a really high table, and one of these days when I make enough money, I'm going to replace the wood top with a steel top, and because I'm getting sick of this wood always flexing, and you know what I'm saying. Those of you experienced guys out there know that having a wood table, can be convenient when you have to put a piece of steel down and drill straight down through it. But when it comes to welding and that sort of thing, this table is slightly warped in certain spots, so I can't really weld anything very well on top of that because of the warpage. So, yeah, vise, got that last Christmas. Got a little anvil here, been using that. That thing's pretty nice to have. Now, from the chop saw, going back, I've got this secondary little table that I have sitting up here where I can put extra pieces, templates, and parts that I won't use right now, but I will eventually use. And I can lay those all out, and they're out of the way, and I don't have to deal with them until the time when I need to deal with them. Next to that, we have my sheet metal. I don't know why my fender's there, but yeah, the sheet metal. A lot of this, most of the smaller pieces that you can see, except for the expanded, a lot of that is still sheet metal left over from the Batmobile. A lot of the smaller pieces are. Some of it's going to be used, well, here and there. It's kind of nice to have a lot of little pieces of sheet metal left over. You might want to hang on to your pieces that you have, even, if they've got any side on them that might be 2 to 3 inches, you want to hang on to it, even though it might be a point, because you can always cut that square out. You can always cut a square out of that and use it to like plug the end of a square tubing or whatever. It's kind of nice to have scraps of sheet metal in a designated area. And next to that, I have my drill press. Now, my drill press that I have is also from Harbor Freight. It's, I think it's 32 inches high. It's a 13 inch, I don't know what's dictating 13 inches. It's classified as a 13-inch drill press. On here it says it's item 38142. But I got this drill press a long time ago. Well, I shouldn't say a long time ago, but I got it, let's see. Well, I can't remember when I got this, but I know that I got it for Father's Day. Crystal bought it for me. It was on sale at Harbor Freight for $200. And this was the first new piece of equipment that I ever had. It was brand new. I still had the plastic on the neck here. And it's got multiple speed settings in there. And let me get up in here and tell you. Now, when I first set this thing up, I did a little bit of research, and for steel, you don't want to go too slow, but you don't want to go too fast. So I have my pulleys up here set up to, my RPMs are 430. They're 430 RPMs. I have the belts tight because there's an adjustment thing on the side here that I can push down and it tightens the belts. I have it not as tight as I should have it because I don't want the bits to lock up into a piece of steel and get the steel to spin. I have it set so that way it's strong enough to drill through the steel, but in the event that it ever locks up, it won't. And if I'm hanging on to it, the belt will start to spin instead. You know, so it works. I've got it set up so that way it's not gonna. Of course, I might burn out a belt, but you know, I don't have it very tight to the point to where it can hurt me. You know, if I'm hanging onto a piece of steel and I'm drilling down through a thick piece, and the bit grabs the steel, the force that I have on the steel isn't gonna, you know, the belts aren't tight enough to whip it out of my hand and get it to go around in circles. It's happened a few times, but I have it set up so that way that doesn't happen very often. It'll lock up and stop, and I'll hear whee up inside, and then I'll turn it off quick. And the chuck, one place I used to work at, what they did is this pan right here, you drill a hole straight down through in the corner, so that way it doesn't come in contact, you know, it's not going to hit anything inside, and I take my chuck, stick it up in there, so that way I know where it's at all the time. This area back here is where I keep a lot of my spare tools, like the screwdrivers and stuff like that. Tools that I don't use very often, like my rivet gun and spare rivets. Got that stuff all over here. Boxes, like I've got my grinder boxes. When I buy a grinder, a new grinder, I hang on to the box and all the stuff in the box, and including the receipt and the warranty paperwork. So I leave all that stuff in the box, so that way if the tool ever breaks down or something, I've got the box sitting over here. I've got all the relevant information in there, so I can just take my tool, you know, wipe it off, put it back in the box, and, you know, go return it. Now back here I have the other shelving unit that I used to have in the other shop that I built up. And this just has a bunch of miscellaneous parts. When I gutted out the mower, all the stuff that came out from underneath there, I stuck back in here. And it's just, you know, springs and miscellaneous parts that I might use. Next to that, I have this awesome chair that someday I might turn into a shop chair. Actually has rollers and wheels and stuff like that on it, hopefully. Behind that, I have my... this is the old stove from the shop. This is the stove that I did have in the shop before we moved. Wood burning stove. This is my older Harbor Freight stove. And that's the one I had in before I got the big one. So I've got these two. We've got the pellet stove. And I found this thing sitting back here. And it folds up. It's got hinges on it. It folded up and was laying flat, and it blended in with that shelf. I think that's some type of tool shelf or something like that. But it was blending in with that, and the other day, I saw that thing sitting back there. I was like, what the heck is that? And I pulled it out, and yeah, it's an actual hopper extension. So I can, instead of just opening up the lid and dumping the pellets in there, I can actually snap this thing on top, leave the lid open to the hopper, and then I can open this up and dump in an entire bag. Actually, I think I can put 2 bags in there. 2 bags of pellets. So I can start this thing up and just let it run and run and run. Which is kind of good because it takes a lot to heat up this whole dang building, man. Okay, another spot in our shop tour is the refrigerator. Yeah, the refrigerator got left behind when we bought this place. And we're kind of happy about that. It's kind of nice to have a refrigerator out here. I think the guy used it for hunting, and he would put his meat and stuff like that in here. And I don't really use it for much other than putting like drinks and booze and stuff like that all in there. But You know, that stuff right there is the same stuff that's been sitting in there since last summer, I think. Yeah. Not much of a drinker. Up on top we have my swords and just a few other miscellaneous stuff. Some bottles that I plan on turning into something. I'd like to be able to start a little collection of bottles. Put them up along the wall or something like that, up at the along on top, you know. I think that'd be kind of neat. Now over here we have my electronics section. This is where I do all my electronic stuff. When it comes to my LED lights, when I make stuff, my soldering, hot glue is kind of my little crafts electronics area. And then we just have a little bit more shelving and stuff that we have sitting around here. I'd like to someday take this. This is one of those school desks, you know, those old school desks. That thing's just built like a monster, and it all comes apart and stuff, and it's really kind of nice. I was hoping to use that and maybe getting a piece of sheet metal or plexiglass and bending it so that way it would fit this contour, so that way I could put a computer and stuff like that in here. But I don't, I might scrap, I'm not gonna do that because it's just it gets just too dirty in here to have a computer operating in here unless I were to completely seal this thing up. Could probably do it that way too. But I don't want to be drilling on this thing or gluing on it or, you know, any of that kind of stuff, because it's just, it's too rare to have. You know, I mean, it's easy enough to build, but, you know, to actually find a real school desk that was actually used in a school, and it was a big cubby thing. You know, I remember using these when I was in high school, so yeah, don't really want to get rid of that. Not too sure what to do with it, so yeah, maybe I should just move it down in the basement. But this whole area right here of the shop was going to be where we were going to park our cars, but decided not to do that. Over there is where we have all of our house amenities. Everything from like shears, you know, like these, you know, like the little weeding tools and stuff like that, and some line, car oil, you know, stuff that has nothing to do with what I do. It's all separated because I don't want to pool all the stuff together in our garage here. You know, I don't want like go-kart oil sitting next to car oil. I don't want, you know, car tools sitting next to go-kart tool. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get everything all mixed up, because then stuff disappears and I can't find it and I don't know where it's at. So I try to separate stuff. So I've got my stuff over there, and then we've got, you know, our regular stuff over here. Okay, so I don't think I need to mention what this thing is. You guys have already seen this. This is that homemade work table that somebody made out of drawers and cabinets. We picked it up at the Home Resource Center. This thing's proven to be a great piece in the shop here. That's kind of nice. Okay, so now what we have here is the stuff that's in the middle of the garage. The divider. I built this up out of some new wood that we had, and stuff we bought, and stuff that came out of the old shop. It's pretty much where I keep all my go-kart stuff. I've got paint down on the bottom shelf there. Extra parts and stuff that I didn't use that I thought I was going to use but not, and spare cutoff blades, grinding blades. Try to keep all that stuff categorized. It's my old welder that I first started out with right there. And on top here we've got just a bunch of other go-kart parts and stuff that I've bought and didn't use, or I've bought extra stuff that I might use later, you know, and yeah. So then up top I've got just a bunch of stuff that's just, you know, I might use it, artsy stuff. That box, those are stickers, big stickers that go on the on the trailer. You know, I've got other stuff up there too that's like reflective tape, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so. Now the next piece of equipment that I've got is my air compressor. Now this is a Sears air compressor, and back in the day when I was building the Batmobile here, that my neighbor had asked me if I needed an air compressor. Well, I didn't really need one. You know, it was more like a creature comfort, but because I wasn't really using anything that I would need an air compressor for, except for blowing up tires. Well, so I turned him down, and then he came back to me a few days later and asked me if I wanted to buy it with all these tools, with all these Craftsman tools. And I was like, well, I don't know. And he says, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the air compressor and the tools for $100. So I was like, whoa, okay. And that was kind of nice. Couldn't pass that up.